She stayed in the house, in the driveway,
We were all
in that
in agreement
RV.
until Lloyd decided to step
When
in.
did you finally move from the premises? Stop messing with me. All right, Mr. Steven, go ahead and give me a brief overview of why you're here and what you're asking for.
This is my cousin. I signed a power of attorney over to him. I was in the hospital at the time this was put together. So with your permission, I'd like for Lloyd to speak on my behalf. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, Your Honor, my cousin Steve, the plaintiff, was living in Mesquite, Texas, and he wanted to move back to San Antonio. And the defendant, who we have all known for over 22 years, contacted him, said, I have a house, you can lease it for $1,000 a month with $1,000 deposit. So she forced him to make an arrangement so that his bank would automatically send her $1,000 on the first of every month. She wouldn't accept checks or any other payment. So we came down on August 2nd with I drove the U-Haul. He followed us in his car with the dogs. We pull up to the house. There is a RV in one side of the driveway, a trailer in the other side of the driveway, and the defendants were still living in the house. So he couldn't move in. He had to come back the next day. He had hired workers. He had them come back the next day, had to talk to U-Haul, extend the lease, spent the night at our house with me and my wife. And then he leased this home with the impression that they were moving back to Arkansas, the defendant and her partner, Paul, who is not here today. Instead, they moved into the RV and they were living in the driveway. And for the entire length of the time that my cousin Steve, the plaintiff, paid $1,000 a month rent for the premises, he was denied access to the driveway and the garage. And we asked them multiple times to please move the vehicles. Well, basically leave. He was under the impression she was moving back to Arkansas. She stayed in the house, in the driveway, in that RV with the trailer the entire time he paid rent. She never left. She was coming and going, and her partner, Paul, would come and go in the house, use the shower. This guy, Paul, stored 2 cats in one of the bedrooms. He had no access to one of the bedrooms. He had people coming and going. He never, ever, ever felt that he had a home. He never even unpacked because he was waiting for them to leave. In February,
so right now, what is Mr. Stevens asking for?
We're asking for her to return the entire amount of rent that he paid, because he never, ever had the privacy that is indicated in the lease. And
which is how much?
There's 8 months rent plus a deposit. That's $9,000. And I am also asking $11,000 in punitive damages, because the whole time he was there, he had AFib. He was not well. And I believe they took advantage of that. I had to call the police. Myself and these 2 gentlemen here went over to his house to clean his house for him while he was in the hospital. And I was afraid we were going to have a confrontation with the defendant. So I called the police. The police came out and says, look, there's nothing we can do. Go to Assault and Claims Court, but you should call Adult Protective Services, which we did. And we talked to them for months. Nothing ever became of that. But I am asking for punitive damages because my cousin was ill. And I believe that they took advantage of his generosity. They stowed cats in his bedroom, denied him access to his house, kept coming and going. He had no privacy. And I think that he deserves punitive damages for this, because he never, ever felt at home. He wasn't leasing a house. He was leasing a home. And you have
Lloyd, give me a copy of that lease for me. Constable, if you want to give it to my clerk to scan in.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and give me 1 minute, okay?
I also have photographs to give you a better idea of this, showing the vehicle and the trailer in the driveway. And I took probably 30 photos over the course of the lease.
All
And
right,
that-
give me 1
and
minute.
And it's still, they're still there. They
Give me
never-
1 minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cheryl, go ahead.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to say that I object to Mr. Lloyd representing Steve, but furthermore, he led me on the impression that this case was about a certificate of occupancy. And he has been threatening, pushy, aggressive. He's created tons of damages to my house. Steve did move in. I got my stuff out. Lloyd just told a lie. He said that he couldn't move in and he had to reschedule the U-Haul. That wasn't honest. Honestly, what happened was on August the 1st, the beginning of the lease, Steve and Lloyd drove up and Steve called U-Haul because he contracted workers to unload his U-Haul truck. And when Lloyd and Steve checked on the U-Haul, where was it? They weren't there on time. They had overbooked and they asked if they could come the next day. And Steve said yes. So I asked Steve if it would be okay for me to get the rest of the stuff out of the house. There wasn't that much left in the house, but I said, I'll get the rest of the stuff out of the house and I'll make it up to you. And he said, okay. So he did go with his dogs to Lloyd's house and spent the night. And when he came the next day, that's when the moving help unloaded his goods.
Okay, so Ms. Cheryl, this is besides the point. My question is, when did you move out?
I moved out August the 2nd. All of my stuff was out on August the 2nd.
Okay, and where did you move to?
I have a trailer that I'm loading all my stuff up because I'm moving to Arkansas and all of my stuff was in the garage, but we got it all out of there. And the movers put all of Steve's stuff in the garage with the exception of a couple of pieces of furniture in his bed. And they moved that into the bedroom and the living room. And
So when
Steve
did you move to Arkansas?
I have been moving to Arkansas for a couple of years, to be honest with you, Your Honor.
So you have not moved in yet. You are still back and forth on this property. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. I moved to Arkansas in 2021. I'm taking care of my mom and dad. My sister was overseas. When she finally got to Arkansas to help me with that is when I put my house up for sale. And it had everything in the garage that I wasn't able to move up to Arkansas when I moved up there. So I went back to sign the papers to sell the house. I had a buyer. And at that time, the buyer backed out all of a sudden. So that created an issue with me. And then my dad got real sick and he died. I had to go back to Arkansas to attend to that activity, unfortunately. And when I got back, I continued to throw out stuff and get things in the trailer, but I continued to have issues with my health. And Steve said it was perfectly fine with him. I could take my time. He understood about heat exhaustion. He never told me he was sick. I had no idea that he was ill. And when
So your testimony is he let you stay on the property while you rented it to him.
yes, he did.
And of course, none of this was put in writing, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay, does anybody have that?
I have text messages and I have canceled checks for when we made a verbal agreement that I would pay he was not able to get his bank to put the money in my bank with the ACH auto pay or bill pay. And that was part of the lease. And I asked him in September, I said, what happened to the rent? And he said, oh, I have to do that. And I said, that's not what we agreed to. We agreed to your bank doing an auto pay with hands free. You and I are not going to be involved in writing checks or going to the bank because I'm going to be living in Arkansas and I would like to have it automatically. So he signed the lease that said he would agree to that. His bank did do the auto payment for the deposit in July, and they did the ACH transaction. And then when he gets here, he's not able to do that for some reason. He didn't do it for August. He brought me a cashier's check. And then September came and there was no automatic payment. And I asked him about that. And he said, oh, I have to do that. And I said, that's not what we agreed to. I said, but you know what? I'm still here. I'm still suffering from the heat exhaustion and bad back and so forth. And I'm just a little slower than I used to be. and I'm sorry about that. And he said, don't worry about it. Take your time. And so I gave him the September rent-free, and then he asked me in October if we could work out an arrangement with the utilities, and I said, sure, but where's the automatic payment? And he said, my bank won't do it. And I said, why would they do it in Mesquite before you moved, and the bank here won't do it? We could not get his bank to do it. And I gave him an ultimatum. I asked him, if you're not going to be able to have that rental agreement, the check automatically deposited, then I'll give you some options. You can either move or you can pay the rent in advance, and I'll go ahead and accept that if you want to pay the entire amount in advance. And he said, no, he said, let's go ahead and I said, my bank already told me they'll set it up for you if you want to go to my bank. You'll get a $50 bonus, I'll get a $50 bonus, and it's going to be automatic. And he agreed to that. So I did drive him over to the bank because he didn't have any transportation. He had wrecked his car, and I was running errands for him, and I was picking up food for him. I was taking the electricity payments that I made out to him to his bank and depositing it for him. I would run errands for him. I took him to
Okay,
the ER
so
room.
he didn't pay September, he didn't pay October, did he pay November?
Yes, it was set up by November. He sure did
so
get
by
that because he
November.
went with me to the bank to get that squared away, and that was okay with him. And then my dog died, and I was torn up with that. I'm so sorry. And I apologized to him extremely. And I said, I'll be out of here as soon as I can get out of here. And he said, that's fine. And then Lloyd decides to step in and tell me that I need to get out, and Steve doesn't want me there. And I asked
So
Steve
when
about
did you officially move?
officially, I moved in August of 2021.
Okay, but you said September and October and November, you were still there.
I was back to clear out.
When did you finally move from the premises? Stop messing with me and giving me a date that I don't want. I already know you were here September, October, and November. After November, when did you move out officially and not step foot on that property anymore?
It never happened.
Okay, so you were back and forth November, December, January, February, back and
With his
forth, in and out.
permission, with his permission, I have the text to show it, and I have the canceled checks to show it that I would pay the electricity. I'm trying to make it up to him, and he said that's fine. He had no problem with that. He was okay. I did give him access to the garage. I moved the stuff out of the way when the U-Haul workers were there. They unloaded his stuff into the garage, and then he wanted to put his wrecked car in the garage. And so my friend Paul asked if he could move his stuff, the boxes, out of the garage so we could get him in the house, and then we could get his car in the garage. And he said, sure, that's no problem. Nothing was a problem with him. I have the texting and the canceled checks that show we were all in agreement until Lloyd decided to step in and make up false.
And now what canceled checks are you talking about? You're talking about just the electricity.
Utility. Yeah.
Okay, not the rent.
No, I only gave him, I asked
The
him.
rent was automatically set up since November, correct?
Since November, yes. Not from the beginning, but a few months later with my help. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were living in that RV on the side, in and out, going in and out throughout this lease. Is that correct?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay.
That's correct. I was using it for storage. When Lloyd called the code compliance people to come and talk to me, they're the ones that informed me that I was not able to sleep in the RV. And I said, okay, what do I need to do to be in compliance? And he said, unplug it. And when you're ready to load up, you have 3 days to load up. And at that time, I was given 10 days to get out and get all of my belongings out and move the RV and get off the property. And I wasn't able to do that because of my health. And Steve said that was okay, not a problem. So I continued to try to get my stuff together. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. And when he said, you can stay as long as you want, Cheryl, it doesn't bother me. And I said, well, what about this text from Lloyd? What do I do with Lloyd? He wants to report me to the authorities and take legal action. And he said, you know, Cheryl, he overstepped his boundaries. You don't need to answer him. And the next thing I know, here comes the code compliance people. So I got.
Okay, so do you have that text where it says that you could stay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me see it. Okay, Mr. Steven, while she's finding those text messages, what's your take on all of this?
You're asking me myself?
Yes, I am.
Uh, I don't believe I ever said it was okay. I tried to be as friendly as I could because we've known each other for a long time. But not having access to one of the bedrooms and the driveway and the 2-car garage, which I was paying for, I was not happy about it at all.
Give me 1 minute. I'm letting her get that information.
May I say something?
Go ahead.
I would like to know where in the lease, I've looked through and I don't see anything in the lease about having these ACH payments. There's nothing in the lease. This is a lease you can download off the internet. So her stipulations about all this ACH payment are not in the, it just says right here, tenant shall pay landlord the sum of $1,000 per month as rent for the term of the agreement. Due date for rent payment shall be first day of the calendar month. So there's nothing, weakens tenant's obligation to timely pay rent via direct deposit at Texas United Credit Union. Unfortunately, they could not, they were trying for months to organize these payments. And she had access to all his banking information, passwords, everything. And it was really an inconvenience for him to do that, but he did. And we have the bank statements from November showing he paid $1,000. All we're saying, Your Honor, the defendant said she was moving to Arkansas. She never moved to Arkansas. She stayed there the entire time he was leasing the home, denying him access, coming and going. And, I knew she was taking advantage of my cousin. That's why I came in with him and said, we're going to file a lawsuit against Cheryl. Because I've known my cousin for years. He was my mentor. We're both drummers. I wouldn't be playing drums if it wasn't for this man. So we are very close. I'm closer to my cousin than I am my brother. And I saw him being taken advantage of. So I stepped in. Yes, I did a lot of research. I filed the lawsuit. My name should be on the lawsuit. And we just contend that she never left. She's still living there. She never intended to go back to Arkansas. And if she says her health, she was in the backyard doing yard work. So if she's healthy enough to do yard work, she's healthy enough to drive an RV.
Okay, give me 1 minute. Miss
Yes, ma'am.
Cheryl,
Yes, ma'am.
you have the text message?
I cannot find the text message. I have the texts that talk about the checks and so forth.
Miss Cheryl, this is the
Yes,
whole
ma'am.
basis of your whole case. The whole case is that you knew what this case was about because you got served with it. Okay, you're well aware that his allegations are that you've been on the property the entire time and he didn't get full use of the property. So wouldn't you think that if you had the ace in the hole card stating that he would allow you to stay on that property and it would dismiss this whole case? If you had it, don't you think that that would be the first piece of paper you would print out?
I have that on my lease. Did you get a copy of the lease, Your Honor?
Yes, I concede that. That's correct. And it was a very
I got a copy of a lease.
Yes, and it's a very serious inconvenience to force him.
When I submitted my paperwork, I
Force
submitted
him
the
to
lease
make
as
a-
exhibit.
Okay, stop.
Sorry,
Stop.
I apologize.
I am talking to Cheryl, so be
Yes, ma'am.
quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
Cheryl, what are you
Yes, ma'am.
talking about? It's on the lease.
The lease states that if the property is not ready, then the tenant has an option to go somewhere else or accept the property when it's ready, is my understanding to the lease. And that's in the very beginning.
So that allows you to stay on the property through the entire lease?
Well, ma'am, I understood the lease to say that. So yes.
No, we're not.
As number one, Lloyd doesn't have an authorized or legitimate power of attorney. He's using a power of attorney that has no witnesses and no notary. So he actually took the paper to Steve and said, woke him up out of a dead sleep and told him to sign the paper. When Steve says, what is it? What's going on? Steve said, I don't know what this is. And Lloyd had a meltdown and decided to force him to sign this illegitimate power of attorney. So when he signed
What does
that,
that have to do with the case today?
it's to show you that Lloyd has interrupted a relationship between me and Steve.
Okay. I understand that Lloyd may have interrupted a relationship that was beneficial to you.
And
Okay.
yes,
But
ma'am.
that has nothing to do with today. The case was filed against Stephen versus Cheryl. Lloyd
Yes.
has every right to come in here and speak on behalf of Mr. Stevens, whether there's a power of attorney or not.
Okay.
This is a JP small claims court.
Yes,
You are
ma'am.
you are veering from the point of this case.
Okay.
I don't care whose power of attorney. I asked you simply if it was okay for you to rent out a property and for you to remain on that property while the tenant is paying full rent, and yet you get to use that property as well as the tenant, but yet the tenant is paying full rent for that property. That's the question of the day.
Ma'am, there were other circumstances. Steve was very sick. He kept falling down, and I had to go pick him up. Paul had to pick him up. We even called the ER for him so they could get him up off the ground. As far as I can remember,
Mr. Steven, have you had any health issues? Have you been falling on the ground in and out and needing help?
Not in quite some time. I spent some time in the hospital in February and early March. Then I went to a rehab facility, and all those things have gone away now. But that has
Okay,
to do
so
with
that
my atrial
negates that,
fibrillation.
That negates that, Miss Cheryl. Give me something else.
his sister called and said, thank you. Steve told me that he passed out and you saved his life. And Steve thanked me very much for saving his
So
life
that allows you to stay on the property and
and
I'm
protect the
just trying to
property.
get a justification, Miss Cheryl, of how you're gonna justify this case with you accepting $1,000 rent every month and you remaining on the property and utilizing that property to your full benefit.
With his permission.
Okay, but you keep saying that, and I've asked you for proof of that.
Okay.
You can't present me an email. You
Yep.
can't present me a text message. You can't present me anything. I've asked you.
Well, we had an agreement that I would pay the electric bills and I had the copies of the checks.
Mr. Stevens, do you have an agreement that Miss Cheryl is going to pay the electric bills?
She mentioned that since she was still plugged into the house in the RV, that she would take care of the electric bill during that period of time.
Based on what?
I'm sorry?
She would take care of the electric bills because she was going to stay there, or because what?
No, because she was using the electricity that I was paying for from the house, the account was in my name. But she had her RV plugged into the electricity from the house. She was using electricity.
Ma'am, I was
And so,
unplugged. I was unplugged. I was in compliance with code compliance and my case was dismissed. I was unplugged. It was for storage only. And I was unplugged, and that's exactly what the code compliance said to do. I'll be very happy.
do you see where all these discrepancies are when nothing is put in writing and everything is veered off from the lease?
I have several texts from Steve giving me the okay to go. He wanted me to pick up his prescriptions and I did. He wanted me to go pick
Ma'am,
up
that has
groceries, and I
not,
did.
that doesn't justify anything.
He said it was,
That's
he
a
was
home health care.
he was a animal lover and it was okay to keep the cats in one room that he was not using anyway. He went in and visited the cats. He used to have cats. He switched to dogs. Furthermore, he was damaging my property and I was freaking out, I guess. He was not having his dogs go outside. He was letting them go inside. I have hardwood floors. He damaged the floors permanently. I kept cleaning them up.
Again, Ms. Cheryl, if you want to turn around and sue him for everything he did or didn't do, you're more than welcome to. But you have not done that, and you're not going to piggyback on this case. He has sued you for the lease amount. And again, unless you can prove to me that you have something in writing that allows you to stay there on the premises and benefit from all of this, and yet just pay the light and the water, then I'm gonna have to proceed forward.
I have the text right here.
Let me see yet again that I've asked for.
Okay. On Your Honor, please forgive me. My text is skipping around. Just give me one moment. I will show you where he has decided to move out and break the lease without.
No, that's not what I asked you. You're veering everywhere that I need you not to be. I simply asked you, do you have a text stating it allows you to be on this property while you are leasing from him and accepting $1,000 for this property, and that allows you to utilize that room, the storage, the RV, everything, and still accept $1,000 from him?
All I have is the text that says, I know you'd want to know that I'm going to be turning off the CPS electricity. And I said, in response, I've been paying the entire bill as we agreed for the inconveniences I've created. What happened? And he said he's tying up loose ends and preparing for a move. And then on April 19th, he actually moved out of the house. He did pay for the April. That was the automatic deposit. So he did pay for April. And he told me that Lloyd told him that as long as he was there, that I would never leave. And because he was asking me to help him, and I didn't want to have damaged property. So that's all I have is when he said he's going to
That's
move.
not sufficient enough. Ms.
Okay.
Cheryl, how many months did he pay you rent at $1,000?
10. I'm sorry,
10
9.
months?
It was 9 months.
Nine months, okay.
Plus deposit.
And Mr. Stevens, you're in agreement to 9 months of rent, correct, that was paid?
Yes, ma'am, and I have bank records.
Plus deposit.
deposits.
Okay, I didn't ask that. I said you're in agreement to 9 months of rent. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The deposit, something completely different. She's got to do the walkthrough and everything else for the deposit. So I'm not even going to go there with the deposit. So we're at $9,000 split in half. That's $4,500. Judgment's going to be in the amount of $4,500. Everybody is splitting the rent for the 9 months that everybody was on the premises for that rent. So judgment's going to be in the amount of $4,500. Everyone's got 21 days to appeal it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mm.
And
Okay, I'm gonna. Yes, y'all are free to go.
I'm not an attorney. I just dress this way out of respect for the court.
Thank you, sir.
And Lloyd, it's number 3 on the lease that says it's an automatic deposit to my bank, if you want to read number 3.
Okay, we've got SATX Remodeling and a John Porterfield. And then give me 2 minutes, okay? And I will be with y'all shortly if everybody.
Very often to speak with another party such as this, and you just can't seem to work it out. Don't resort to taking the law in your own hands.
We'll hear the litigants' reaction after these messages.
All right, thank you very much. Officer Bell's waiting for you, and that will bring this case to a conclusion.